Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I often said on this platform that Zimbabwe is a failed state. A failed state, by definition, is a state in which it cannot supply or facilitate or enable its citizens to get the basic necessities of life, essential services, work, and so forth, clean water, health, education, and so forth, and cannot provide security. Zimbabwe, we have reached that state. Zimbabwe is a failed state, and this is not just an ordinary statement, but a real, with real victims, real people, real human beings who are suffering as a result of it. I'll just quickly play a short clip of the news that has been shown in Sky News about Zimbabwe.
Right now. Life is too tough. It's very difficult. For some, the crossing isn't so easy. Entrapped by smugglers promising a better life. This 14-year-old girl was trafficked here with her sisters 2 years ago and hasn't seen them since.
I've gone through a lot, like they will pass through people, robbing people. Some of them were taken away and some of them were raped. And then I ended up living here in this shelter.
On the floor. Men too are battered and bruised as they pass through shelters, on their way to South Africa's big cities looking for work. For many, Johannesburg is the goal, the city of gold known for its mining. Now a trap of poverty and persecution. This is rare access into one of Johannesburg's hijacked buildings. This used to be a hospital, and now it's home to hundreds of people who can't afford to live anywhere else. It is decrepit, it's falling apart, there's rubbish everywhere. This is not a livable situation. So do you drink from this water?
People drink from this. People use this water for everything.
There's life in these corridors, children spilling out of the small rooms. But other corridors, burnt and blackened, speak to the death that's come from this destitution.
Some of the community tried to somehow rescue or fix the fire, put the fire off, buckets, and as you saw, our water supply is very slow, so we couldn't make it in time. So the kid that died holding this bucket like this.
But for some foreigners who make it here, there's little other choice. So you'd rather be in this hijacked building than be back home in Zimbabwe?
At the meantime, the second level of the
This is the reality of life for the poor in South Africa. And yet, millions of Zimbabweans have gone to South Africa. Ben, welcome to the program.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. It's really a sad story. You know, Zimbabwe is a sad story. And the unfortunate thing I find frustrating is that, you know, the powers that be seem not to be concerned about what is happening to their citizens. Not only Zimbabwean citizens, but Sadc citizens. We belong in Sadc. And when Sadc continues to keep quiet, about this. I find it very disturbing.
Well, the truth of the matter is the Zimbabwe economic and political crisis is a man-made problem. The genesis of this crisis is the country's failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections. And nothing epitomizes this situation than the 2008 elections, which has become the watershed of Zimbabwe's political election chaos. This is a clip of Mnangagwa boasting of what he did in the 2008 elections.
2008 patakaita ma-elections pakaposa papinda Tsvangirai ndandiri election agent yapresident. Results abuda tiri paparty headquarters vamutasa vanga vari secretary vedu veadministration vamutasa muripi ndafona ndiri kwarusapi komogwenda kwarusapi seka maresults achibuda kudai vanga aiwa zvako izvo Mnangagwa ndezvako endaenda kumusha ofisi vanga vabisa zvinhu zvavo zvose watofunga kuti zani yadini yaparara. President ofona zvakamira sei kati ndomamira zvakaita takatodini kateda sei manje mama ndikati abvudzai baba nditaurira baba gadzirai politburo cabinet musarangarira zvimwe zvinhu gadzirai chi cabinet asi nangoda kuti muzive kuti 2008 results abuda vamutasa vakatiza.
As a country we face a generational transition. Vana vesa vari kuma below 35, they are crying out for help. The country is in a mess. Arusurufaro. We know we are inheriting a mess. We know this country has been left with nothing.
I'm assuring you that starting from tomorrow, you'll see a different nation from what you have seen or read on the news about these results and everything. Where we are going ahead there, the situation will be very different. What we said to our people, they could not see with their own eyes. We are going to act as we see it fit. We are prepared to go the whole distance.
The tragedy of Zimbabwe is man-made. Our failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections is at the root of the Zimbabwe crisis. Now, millions of ordinary Zimbabweans are paying dearly for it. Zimbabwe's political crisis is holding back the country's own development, the region's own development, and now is causing political instability not only in Zimbabwe, but in the whole region. This is a crisis that must be solved. Sitting back and pretending that it's not happening is no longer an option.
This is why I was saying, Sadc cannot remain quiet or, continue supporting, what ZANU-PF is doing to its citizens, and not only its citizens, but what it is doing across the region. Zimbabwe has become a burden and a liability to the region. And if SADC continues to sing praise to Mnangagwa and his cronies, Sadc will be dragged under with Zimbabwe. And we can see this happening. We have witnessed it in Mozambique. Zimbabwe was fingered in it. We've seen it across, not only Mozambique, across Southern African, states. ZANU-PF has a hand and an evil hand in, oppressing or trying to outmaneuver, democratic systems. This needs to be addressed. Somebody needs to say, hold on. Enough is enough. You cannot continue keeping quiet. And at the end of the day, sing praise to say Zimbabwe, is showing development when let's say every able-bodied person, everybody that has a will is outside the country. It really, really doesn't make sense. For me, I think that is the most unforgivable, thing that a Sadc can do, to fellow citizens. And they need to address it.
Well, if the truth be told, Sadc did give Zimbabwe the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms which would have dismantled the ZANU-PF dictatorship by forcing ZANU-PF to go into the GNU of 2008 to 2013. Not even one token reform was implemented in those 5 years. Sadc in 2013 warned Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends not to participate in the elections without reforms. They ignored the warning. We cannot continue blaming Sadc. We have to look ourselves in the mirror and accept that we are our own worst enemy. Zimbabwe has been warned again and again, do not participate in flawed elections because you only give ZANU-PF legitimacy. And yet, again and again, people have been conned into participating. This economic and political crisis, we can end it. We could have ended it by stopping participating in flawed elections. Now let's learn something from the past. Chamisa in 2023 lied that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. People participated in those elections on the basis that CCC would win big, rig the elections. That was stupid. Because everyone could see that he had not plugged any vote rigging loopholes, and that tended to be the case. We cannot keep on repeating these foolish mistakes. I repeat, Zimbabwe's political and economic crisis is not just a story. There are millions of Zimbabweans, ordinary Zimbabweans, who are the victim to this crisis. We must do something to end it. And that something is stopping participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy and perpetuate the dictatorship. Thank you, Ben. Do you want to give your closing remark?
Thank you. In closing, I would want to just say, it is sad to see, fellow countrymen, struggling and enduring such hardships. But again, I would say, as Sadc, we all belong to this, to this organization or within this region, and it is for Sadc to protect us even against its own member states. I really hope Sadc would put ZANU PF in its place at some point in time, and I'm hopeful that will be in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you very much for those of you who were able to join us this evening. We are hoping to resume our broadcasts 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwe time every evening. I repeat, the Zimbabwean political crisis, economic and political crisis, is a man-made problem, and it is for Zimbabweans to finally sit up, take note, and address these problems. The people we are seeing flooding from Zimbabwe to South Africa are doing it out of desperation. The conditions they are living in South Africa are appalling, as we saw. And yet, they find themselves being forced to do so. All because we have failed to resolve our own problem, our failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections. This must stop. Thank you very much again, Ben, and to those of you who were able to join us, thank you for joining us. Have a good night.